According to reports, the New York Islanders are getting closer to making a massive signing, a signing that's likely going to keep a player that has been a long-time Islander on the Islanders until he retires, and also a signing that's going to tell us what Lou Lamoriello's plans for this franchise are moving forward after an offseason where Lou Lamoriello promised change to the Islanders fans. We're going to break it all down on this episode of Islanders Digest, but before we do that, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Be one of our first 100 subscribers. If you're an Islanders fan and you want more Islanders content, especially in this offseason where we promise so much change, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. Now, there's a report from ProHockeyRumor.com that is talking about Elliot Friedman's podcast, 32 Thoughts, and it sounds like the Islanders are getting closer to re-signing Kyle Palmieri and defenseman Adam Boqvist. And out of these two names, the one that really stands out to me and a lot of Islander fans is Kyle Palmieri, because Kyle Palmieri is 34 years old. Now, of course, Adam Boqvist is definitely a more exciting list as this article goes on to talk about. We're definitely going to make a video focusing on the Adam Boqvist potential signing and what that can mean once that comes out, because Adam Boqvist is definitely a more encouraging player for the future, considering he is 24 years old. But we have to talk about this Kyle Palmieri signing because it tells us two important things about the Islanders. First of all, although Lou Lamoriello promised to get this team younger, he clearly still intends on keeping some of these veterans on the team. And more importantly, right off the bat, it tells us that Lou Lamoriello is going to be making these decisions coming forward, until we get any new information, because it would make sense no matter what to be talking to Adam Boqvist if the situation with the GM was unclear, because Adam Boqvist is an RFA. Realistically, it's only going to cost $1 million, depending on how many years, to keep Boqvist around. But Kyle Palmieri is a different story. This is a big-time free agent whose contract is coming up. We're going to have to decide what we're going to do with him before July 1st. And the fact that Lou Lamoriello is talking about an extension with Kyle Palmieri, and it seems like it's getting closer, that's a good sign that Lou Lamoriello is going to be the GM next year, and he already knows he's going to be the GM next year. Otherwise, he would not be able to talk contract like this. Now, maybe there's a chance that that's simply why this contract has not been signed yet. That's why it's not official, because this is a contract that's been talked about for a while, especially after the Islanders did not move Kyle Palmieri at the deadline, a move that a lot of fans complained about, because Kyle Palmieri is a player who potentially could have gotten you at least a second-round pick, especially the way things were going this deadline. Now, we don't know officially whether or not the Islanders were offered a second-round pick. We do have reports, especially with the GM of Vancouver complaining about how little he got offered for Brock Boeser. Perhaps this was not as good of a market for right wings as it was for centers, but still, the Islanders elected to keep Kyle Palmieri, citing that they still believe they had a chance to make the playoffs. We saw how that went. The Islanders did not make the playoffs. Now Kyle Palmieri is getting a year older, and it looks like the Islanders are going to be signing him to a new contract. At least that's how it sounds. And the talk after he was not moved after the deadline was that there was a contract in talks, but they did not quite settle on it. And then it went quiet. So a lot of fans hoped, well, maybe now that Nelson was gone, Lou Lamoriello would decide to go in a different, younger direction. And clearly, that is not the case. And if you read this article, it basically talks about how likely this contract is going to be around the same price figure as Kyle Palmieri's previous contract, likely not as many years. He's not. The article emphasizes that it does not appear like he's going to get a raise. We'll see how much of a pay cut he gets, and if there is a pay cut, I'm definitely looking a little more optimistically at this contract. But regardless, I am concerned no matter what, and that doesn't mean it is a terrible idea. We're going to talk about towards the end of this video how re-signing Kyle Palmieri can be a really great idea, and some things it opens up the Islanders to do, because I do think if done right, and if Lou is on the right track of thought, that re-signing Kyle Palmieri can be a great decision that really helps the Islanders out long term. I know that sounds a little weird right now. I'll explain that at the end of the video. But first, I really want to talk about Kyle Palmieri's numbers, especially with the Islanders. It's a player who has been around the league for a long time, and really we don't have to focus on his numbers with the Devils or the past. We really want to focus on what he's done for the Islanders, because really that's all that matters, and really that's all we're gonna get for Kyle Palmieri, especially now that he's getting older. Now, he had one of his best seasons last year, scoring 30 goals, getting 24 assists, 54 points, and really staying healthy for a full 82-game season, and that does make me feel a little better. Earlier on in his career as an Islander, he played 69 games and then 55 games. Kyle Palmieri really struggled to stay healthy. However, the next two seasons, Kyle Palmieri ended up playing 82 games and then 82 games again. These last 2 years, he has been healthy, which does at least tell me that Kyle Palmieri is a player that can stay healthy and is a player who I am comfortable giving a contract moving forward. Again, though, Kyle Palmieri is 34 years old. It's unlikely we see another step up in production from Kyle Palmieri. That incredible season we had in 2023, 2024, where he had 30 goals, was great. Don't expect that production again, but if we can get 20 goals from this player for the next few seasons, it can make sense to keep Kyle Palmieri, especially with how expensive these scoring wingers are going to get in the future. Obviously, Islander fans do want change. It makes sense. I mean, you're looking at this roster, not only is it stale, but it's getting older. But one thing we have to keep in mind when it comes to Kyle Palmieri, obviously, Islander fans would have been really happy if they traded him at the deadline and got a second-round pick, perhaps even more than just a second-round pick. Lou Lamoriello emphasized that he could not get a player in a deal, and therefore he did not trade Kyle Palmieri. Likely, if he could have gotten a quality prospect, he would have made the deal. Considering he did not, that means there likely was no prospect available, at least not for Kyle Palmieri. And where I see this as a deal that can actually help the Islanders in the future long term, I know that I said that before, might have confused some people. I mean, Kyle Palmieri is 34 years old, but you look at some of the other players on the Islanders, and considering the Islanders are already talking about bringing back Kyle Palmieri, we talked about really earlier in the season that they have plans to bring back Maxim Sipakov. Simon Holmstrom is likely returning. I don't see why he wouldn't. And it makes you ask the question, if we're bringing back all these players, where is this change going to come from? Because Lou Lamoriello talked about change. And I think a big part of this change, considering the Islanders don't have many prospects ready to come up next season, except for Callum Ritchie, is it's going to come through trades. And perhaps trading a Kyle Palmieri makes it easier to move a player like Anders Lee, another player who plays the wing, another player who gives you 30 goals. It is very unlikely that Lou Lamoriello was going to have this team go into next season losing two of its top goal scorers. That's just simply not what's going to happen. I know a lot of fans do kind of want to have a terrible season next year, really bottom out. That is not how the GM thinks, and realistically that wouldn't work that well, especially for keeping the players on this team happy. You need to have players like Mathew Barzal and Bo Horvat to play with, and perhaps part of the idea with bringing back Kyle Palmieri is the only way to retain any value for Kyle Palmieri at this point is to re-sign him. So it makes sense to do so, and then out of the players in line, perhaps that makes it easier for the Islanders to trade a player like Anders Lee or Pajot. And that's really an area where a trade like this can work for the Islanders' future. Another thing I do want to talk about when it comes to a move potentially bringing back Kyle Palmieri is how much it would likely cost to replace his production in this lineup. Because although he is an older player, he produced a lot this season. And when you look at the free agents who are going to be available this offseason, there are some interesting guys on the top. I know a lot of people are talking about Mitch Marner. Realistically, Mitch Marner probably is not going to come to the Islanders. If any rumors change, or if there's a report that Lou Lamoriello has a good relationship with Mitch Marner, we will talk about it. But realistically, when it comes to replacing a player like Kyle Palmieri, there really aren't that many options. I mean, Brock Boeser is there, Nikolai Ehlers. These are both players who play the wing, but they're going to come at a significantly higher price point. And they're two players who have also spent a lot of time in the past 3 seasons injured. So perhaps there's an argument to be made that if the Islanders want to keep their lineup competitive while they also try to get younger, it makes more sense to spend a little bit of money on Kyle Palmieri now on a deal that's only going to cost 2 or 3 seasons. Sure, it's probably going to cost you $4.5 million, but a shorter term deal like that might make more sense than risking $8 million on a player like Brock Boeser, who might not be able to play long term, especially with his injury history. Another scenario is you have other players like Andrew Magipane or Andrei Kuzmenko. And these are both players who are younger than Kyle Palmieri. But because they're younger, they're likely going to cost more money and they're going to want longer term. And the question is a player like Magipane or Kuzmenko more productive than Kyle Palmieri next season? And the answer is probably no. And because of that, I think it is not the worst decision to re-sign Kyle Palmieri. But for Lou Lamoriello, this cannot be the only move. You cannot bring this same team back. This has to be part of a way to move out other players. That being said, those are my thoughts on this. What do you think about the Islanders bringing back Kyle Palmieri? Do you think this is a decision that can work for the Islanders? Or are you just already furious listening to this video? I'd love to know your comments in the comments below. As always, if you have not already, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more Islanders content. This will be a very exciting offseason. My name is Patrick Nilan. This is Islanders Digest. Let's go, Islanders.